Good morning and welcome back as we finish our reading in the book of Exodus. This morning we're in Exodus chapters 37 through 40. And we'll end up in Leviticus chapters 1 through 4, but we're right now at a point where the tabernacle is now being built in these chapters 37, 38, and 39 and erected in chapter 40. So we have the tabernacle built, we have the articles are being built and finally inspected by Moses, and then in chapter 40 the tabernacle is erected and all of the articles put in their place. Now for that, I think it is more important to talk about what that tabernacle represents rather than the physical pieces of it. So I want to spend time looking at the spiritual aspect of this. And that leads us back to Exodus chapter 25 and verse 40. And God tells Moses, "See that you make them after the pattern for them, which was shown to you on the mountain." So what is that pattern? And the best explanation of that pattern is Jesus himself. The tabernacle and the articles in it are made on the pattern of God's plan of redemption. His plan of salvation for us is the plan of our association with him and the ability for us then to approach God. So as we look at the parts of this, it's not so much about the tabernacle and the tent that was erected, but what is in it. So with this, let's take a look at the articles that are there. First is the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant is the wooden box covered in gold. It has the mercy seat on top of it. And in it is the covenant. The covenant is the tablets themselves that were given to Moses. The covenant is the commands of God given on those tablets. So he said, "You will have no other God before me. You will not make any idols. You will not profane my name, and you will keep the Sabbath and make it holy." And then the last 6 commandments are, "And you will live with each other in a respectful way." So these commandments God's given it. But the most important part is, "I will be your God. You will be my people. And you will have no other gods. You will have no idols." So these are the commandments here that are held. These are the words of God in the Ark. Now we see Jesus representative of the Ark. The Ark was made on that plan. Jesus is the Ark. The Word is in him. And in him, that's where we find our own salvation. This is where we, in turn, instead of the mercy seat and the presence of God where God would meet man, now Jesus meets us. Jesus is where God meets man. So Jesus is a man and a God. So this becomes representative of how the ark was designed based on Christ himself. So the mercy seat, this was God's grace and mercy that allows us then to approach him. Up until that time, there was a veil in front of the ark. Jesus died on the cross, that veil was ripped. And so at this point, that eliminates the division there. We now have access to God by that veil being ripped. Other aspects of this, the altar of the blood, the altar of the sacrifice. This, of course, represents the blood of atonement. Now, up to this point, and throughout this, up until Christ, now these animals will be slaughtered and the blood spilled as atonement for sin or guilt and for different other reasons. Eventually, it will be Christ's blood on the cross, that altar, and that will finish and do away with the sacrificial system, because he will have made the final sacrifice. And again, I will send you back to the book of Hebrews for the explanation of all this. Hebrews does an excellent job of bringing the Old Testament into the New Testament and explaining the sacrificial system and the replacement of it, the Old Covenant, the New Covenant. So that is so, I can't say that enough for you to go and read the book of Hebrews. So the table also, the table is where the showbread was, or the bread of the presence. Jesus in John chapter 6, verse 48, I am the bread of life. This is representative of it. On that table was the showbread that was one loaf for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And so that was his way of saying, I will feed you. You know, they had the manna all of the time that they would be in the desert. So God was always providing bread, but Jesus is the bread of life. And this is where the table then is representative of his body himself, the altar representative of the blood itself. This is where what? We get the ordinance of the Lord's Supper. Take, eat, this is my body, which has been broken for you. So to that end, we have that. He also gives the cup to drink. This is the blood of my covenant. So these things are representative of Christ, but it's in the early stages. It's in the age of the law and not the age of grace. And then there is the lamp that is in the holy place. John 1, verses 4 through 5. In him was the life, and the life was the light of men. So we have then Jesus is the light. Even back in Genesis, right at the very beginning of creation, and God said, and let there be light. Only in the third day was the moon made. It was the sun and the moon identified. So where did that light come from? So the initial light was probably from Christ himself. So we see that he is the light. This is the lamp. He is the ark with his word in him. And he said, to keep his words. And he said too, by the way, as far as that goes, he said, if you ask anything in my name, I will do it. So to that end, we have then the access through him from prayer. This goes to the altar of incense, because our altar of incense was, if you go back again, like I said last time, you go back to Revelation chapter 8, verses 3 and 4, the angel had the incense, and that's where prayers were going up with the incense. Just go back and read that real quick. And you'll see that Jesus now says, I will take care of your prayers. Ask anything in my name, and I will do it, he said. So all these articles that are in the tabernacle is what is important. And this is the pattern that the tabernacle and its articles were made on, and that being Jesus himself. So as you read through this, make sure that you understand what you're reading and why God directed it to be built this way. Make sure that you build this according to the pattern that was shown you on the mountain. So that gives us that look at it rather than going through the physical building of it, but what the spiritual meaning of it all is. And that makes a whole lot more sense if you look at it in that direction. Finally, we look at Leviticus chapters 1 through 4. Now in these 4 chapters, we get the sacrificial system that started. It's going to be the worship system in the requirements that God has. We have the burnt offering in chapter 1. In chapter 2, we have the grain offering. In chapter 3, the peace offering. And in chapter 4, the sin offering. All of these are going to be different offerings for different reasons, with different animals, different procedures for them. And that will all be discussed as we leave the book of Exodus, now going into Leviticus, and how this sacrificial system will work. So that takes us into that. I hope that you have a understanding of, now looking back really into the entire book of Exodus, just do a short review of what God has done in the book of Exodus as we begin to move into the sacrificial system itself. So may God bless the reading of his word, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.